After watching every WWE pay-per-view of 2004 back in full, this is the first year in the series that I genuinely felt like had a step down. 2002 was a turning point, 2003 felt like it was setting things into place, but 2004 exposed a clear imbalance. Throughout the year, Raw consistently delivered stronger shows, with higher quality matches, more engaging storylines, and simply more to talk about. Meanwhile, SmackDown struggled to reach those same heights, with many of the pay-per-views feeling average at best and at times even difficult to watch. The gap between the two brands became impossible to ignore as the year went on, and just like previous episodes, I've ranked and rated every single match from every pay-per-view on those shorts that are already on the channel if you want to go check out a quick version of a review of each pay-per-view. But in this episode, we'll be breaking down 2004 in full. So, of course, starting off with the Royal Rumble. Considering card position, Chris Benoit is quite a random winner of the Royal Rumble. Maybe on weekly TV he's built up a little bit more, but without knowing, you would have never have guessed Chris was going to win this match based on pay-per-view matches going into the end of 2003. Hardcore Holly got a title shot just to add numbers to the Royal Rumble match, so he was in the world title match facing Brock Lesnar, so more main eventers could be in the Royal Rumble. Shawn Michaels vs Triple H is a classic and one of my favourite matches of their feud, as they went to a draw in a last man standing match. In the Royal Rumble match, Test gets absolutely screwed again, but it's really cool and a really a well done reveal that Foley was in the Rumble, and Orton sells well for Foley that sets up their feud going into the early parts of the year. Chris Benoit starting and winning is never not impressive, and a little statistic, there was no former winners in the Royal Rumble at this point. The tease of The Undertaker was cool before WrestleMania 20, and I wish Angle probably would have won this one, but in hindsight, due to the fact that we can't really talk about this Rumble anymore, but it is what it is. Moving on to No Way Out, Hardcore Holly with a pretty big pay-per-view win. Angle versus Big Show versus John Cena was better than I remember, and they actually cooked at times. And of course, Eddie Guerrero winning the WWE Championship was a fantastic moment with a great match against Brock Lesnar too. At WrestleMania 20, John Cena would see his first gold and win his first of many championships in the United States Championship. I liked the swerve at the end of Jericho versus Christian, showing that good guys don't always get the girl or the win. We saw the first Hall of Fame, and as an annual tradition, and there were some Hall of Fames before this, but from this point to now, we've had a Hall of Fame every year. The Cruiserweight Open was a fun match, and they will continue to put these on pay-per-view, which I fully agree with. They're very good matches. Full respect to Molly Holly getting her head shaved on a WrestleMania stage. Angle versus Eddie was great, but slow at times, and they had a much better match down the line. We saw the return of Deadman Undertaker since 1999, and it was a decent match with Kane, but I wanted a little bit more out of it. And in the main event, and probably one of the top 10 main events in history, Triple H, Shawn Michaels and Chris Benoit tore the house down, had a fantastic match, and they would see the crowning moment of Chris Benoit becoming the new World Heavyweight Champion. On to Backlash, and this was the best Backlash probably in history, if not one of the best at least. It's got one of my favourite matches on it, easy top 5 for me. Mick Foley versus Randy Orton is an incredible match. Violent, Orton passes the test of being able to, I don't know, people describe it as that, and I don't really know what they mean, but it's kind of the test of going from just a rookie to someone they can definitely rely on. But everything about this match is great. It's a star-making performance for Randy Orton. The rematch of Benoit versus Triple H versus Shawn Michaels is good. It's not great. The Mania one was much better. At Judgment Day, Kurt Angle is hurt and nearly killed, actually, by the Big Show. But so he becomes the GM of SmackDown. We saw the debut of Mordecai, or Kevin Thorne, as some people might know him. Not sure what the idea behind this was, and yeah, it's probably why that failed. The main event was infamous for Eddie Guerrero bleeding buckets after a chair shot from JBL. It's a brutal shot to the head. Guerrero bled and got a really deep cut. It's a crazy visual, and yeah, I mean, the match is pretty good by itself, but the added visuals, as I said, of Guerrero bleeding everywhere just improves it massively. Bad Blood, Randy Orton and Shelton Benjamin had a good showing of young talents to open the show, I believe. Kane versus Chris Benoit was okay, but, Kane's all about suffering and violence at this point, so I'm not sure why he would care about gold. Shawn Michaels versus Triple H in Hell in a Cell was simply too long. You could have taken like a good 15 minutes off this match and it would have been even better, but at times it was very slow, and yeah, it just didn't need to go 40 to 45 minutes. At the Great American Bash, we saw a really good four-way to start off with Booker T, John Cena, Rene Dupree, and Rob Van Dam, with Booker and Cena looking particularly good. Eddie Guerrero losing the WWE title in controversial fashion, starting off an historic reign by JBL, was okay, but the reign itself was pretty mediocre. Undertaker versus the Dudleys was awful, and then Paul Bearer being buried anyway because, well, it wasn't really explained, which is just even worse. Yeah, a terrible way to end a pay-per-view, and overall a very bad pay-per-view, probably one of the worst of the year, but trust me, it's not the worst of the year. Moving on to Vengeance, and Batista got a big win over Chris Jericho. The Kane, Matt Hardy and Lita feud starts and it's absolutely crazy, but we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into SummerSlam. Evolution using Eugene was weird because of all people on the roster, they're using Eugene. In the moment, Orton losing the Intercontinental Championship to Edge is quite a surprise actually. I would never have seen it coming if I didn't know what was coming for Randy Orton at SummerSlam. Benoit vs Triple H wasn't as good as I expected. I thought it would be a banger, but unfortunately it wasn't. Moving on to SummerSlam, there is a fair bit to talk about with this one because it is such a good pay-per-view. Till Death Do Us Part match between Matt Hardy and Kane, with the winner having to, well, Lita has to marry the winner. I'm sorry, I took a while getting there. It's ridiculous, it's funny, the whole story is very laughable, and yeah, it's just, I look back on it and it's kind of funny at the time. I can imagine it's not great, but you know, it's just one of those things, like random storylines in the early 2000s that WWE like to do. Angle versus Guerrero was a better match on the show, but the Mania match was a lot better. Fans booing Eugene is very funny, as he was definitely the big babyface going into the match, and they were cheering Triple H, showing that clearly they weren't taking this the way that WWE wanted them to. They were taking it very seriously, and that Eugene shouldn't have been in the position that he was in. The fact that during probably one of the bigger matches of the night, the WWE Championship match, the fans were entertaining themselves by doing waves and chanting kind of to themselves is not great for a WWE Championship match. And overall, Undertaker vs JBL is probably one of the worst matches of the year. There's a ridiculous part where Orlando Jordan does a ref pin, but it's like really like long and strange. It's very bizarre. DQs are just thrown out, and yeah, they throw out the DQ eventually. It's very, very bad, and it kind of sums up SmackDown very well at this point. It's just an absolute shit show. And then in the main event, Randy Orton became the youngest World Heavyweight Champion ever. The match was okay. It was a bit of a shame the title run didn't work out, and they pulled the trigger too early on Randy Orton. But yeah, as a main event, it was fine. But yeah, as I say, all the funniest stuff actually came earlier on with SummerSlam, which makes it that little bit more enjoyable. Unforgiven, Stratus and Christian's partnership came to an end, and Trish Stratus versus Victoria was given actual time. They were actually doing proper wrestling. It was actually a pretty decent match. Edge getting injured again is very unfortunate, and there was a pretty good ladder match to get a new Intercontinental Champion between Chris Jericho and Christian in his absence. Lita referring to Kane as her husband is just really weird considering the storyline, and Kane labelling Lita his property is just as bad. It's a shame that Randy Orton's first title reign came to an end only a month in and it didn't work out. At the time, it was kind of typical to put the title back on Triple H. The match isn't great, it's quite slow at times, the interference didn't really help either, unfortunately, and yeah, just not great out of these two. Going on to No Mercy, I don't know what it is, but there seems to be like no care put into SmackDown pay-per-views at all. They feel levels below Raw in quality. But yeah, going into the pay-per-view itself, Kidman has the most brutal shooting star press. Like, what do you mean? Like, he's literally internally injuring people, like they're bleeding out from the mouth when he hits the shooting star press. I didn't really understand the story behind it, but it was a way to make Billy Kidman heel, I guess. Booker T versus John Cena is probably the highlights of SmackDown pay-per-views when they had their best of 5 series. JBL versus Taker was slow and mediocre, and once again, and yeah, it's hard to talk a lot about SmackDown pay-per-views because they're just so diabolically bad. So moving on to Taboo Tuesday, we saw the debut of this concept, and it's a good idea, and I think it would definitely work in today's day and age with social media. The Battle Royal is worth watching for commentary from Jerry Lawler and visuals alone, as the Divas had a Fulfill Your Fantasy Battle Royal. Kane and Snitsky and Lita feud is nuts as well. It's not as crazy as the Kane and Matt Hardy and Lita feud, but the whole baby kicking thing, losing the baby, it's very uncomfortable, and as I said, has its laughable moments. But yeah, it's just not very good. We get to the baby kicking, which is obviously famous when it comes to WWE. I don't think they do it on pay-per-view. We don't really cover it here, but it's, not great. Chris Benoit wins the tag titles on his own, which is a very questionable decision. And unfortunately, the worst match out of the Triple H and Shawn Michaels feud happens on this pay-per-view as well. And I think for a concept that's so good, the only real good part about this was Shelton Benjamin winning the Intercontinental Championship. Survivor Series, Shelton Benjamin was a perfect embodiment of the IC Championship, and he was having great matches consistently and completely understandable hype behind him back then. If Big Show had a broken ankle or an injured ankle, why was the tape over his boot? That really doesn't make any sense, and it looked kind of stupid. Lita vs Stratus was quick, but Trish Stratus took a brutal shot into the post, and she got kicked onto a chair as well, which ended up breaking her nose. We saw the Raw Survivor Series match, which had a small prize to it, which was the winning team got a week of running Raw, of which then the team that won just had world title matches against Triple H, just as much as I can remember. But it added some stakes to a Survivor Series match that could have just been for nothing, so I kind of like the idea behind that. And finally, Armageddon. Let's just say Armageddon was by far the worst pay-per-view on this entire year. It was awful. It was so bad to watch, and I hated watching every second of it pretty much. But we had rookies doing boxing on a wrestling pay-per-view. The fans booed a lot for this. The Bastions versus Charlie Haas and Hardcore Holly got literal boring chants in the middle of it. Kurt Angle versus Santa, John Cena versus Jesus, the muscle behind Carlito at the time, Jackie versus Dawn, and there was another match as well that I can't remember. It was all straight ass of a pay-per-view. It was the absolute worst pay-per-view, not even of this year. It's probably the worst pay-per-view of this entire video series so far. The opener and the main event were really the only saving graces, but overall it was truly, truly terrible. Looking back on 2004, it's a year defined by imbalance. Raw consistently delivered the stronger shows, the high quality matches, more engaging stories, and the moments that felt like pay-per-views were worth watching and talking about. But on the other side, SmackDown struggled to keep up, many of its pay-per-views felt average, and at times genuinely difficult to sit through. By the end of the year, the gap between the two brands had become not just noticeable, but undeniable. There were still positives, strong performances, solid matches, and moments that kept the year from being like a complete failure, but for the first time in this series, watching WWE at points felt like a chore, and that's something that I hadn't experienced in previous years. And of course, looking back now, there's also an unavoidable asterisk over parts of 2004 that affects on how the year was viewed, as the main guy on Raw was Chris Benoit. Overall, a step down from 2003, and a year was highlighted by how important balance was across both brands really is. And that's going to be it for the episode 4 of the Retrospective. I'll see you next time as the journey continues.